The HomeTech podcast is supported by you. To find out more, go to HomeTech.fm/support.
This is the HomeTech podcast for Friday, February 22nd from Denver, Colorado. I'm Jason Griffin.
Hey, I'm from Sarasota, Florida. I'm Seth Johnson.
How you doing, Seth?
Pretty good. I can't believe it's already been a week since our last recording. Like, it feels like we just sat down last week, did the show.
Yeah,
It was a long show last week, though, right?
It was, yes. Last week was a was a monster episode. It was a good one, though, right? Hopefully.
I hope so. I mean, you may still be listening to this show. And we just picked it back up.
Yeah, if you're working through that one, you'll have to get to this one later, I guess. I don't know where we clocked in on that one, but definitely a longer episode, but really enjoyed catching up with Giles at CEDIA. And I think we've got another great one this week. We had Tony Ostrom on from the WiSA Association. They're a new wireless, a new-ish, I should say, not brand new, but a new-ish wireless audio standard, really designed for like the media room and home theater sort of environments, so ultra low latency, really flexible, cool new technology. I really enjoyed having Tony on and learning more about that.
Yeah, definitely. It's way cooler. I mean, we're striving for that input zero, right? And this is one of the ways that I think this is one of those things that comes out of left field and says, this is how we're going to get this is now you can see the path. Like you can see the stepping stones to get to that input zero. And I knew this kind of stuff would come out of nowhere, and this is one of them. This is one of those things that's just like, oh yeah, this is how we get there. This is how we have a TV on the wall and nothing else. And it's pretty cool technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I definitely enjoyed learning about it. So be sure to stay tuned for more on that. But as usual, what do you say, Seth? We jump into some home tech headlines.
Let's do it. Josh AI has launched integration with Savant, the smart home platform. The integration facilitates seamless interactivity between Savant's user-focused scene creation into the Josh AI platform. By adding Savant capability, Josh AI continues to invest in the custom integration channel and its own ecosystem partners. Yeah, so this is, I know they do Crestron, Control4, and now Savant.
Yep.
Good for those guys.
Pretty cool. And good to see Savant playing nice with others. And I know I had the chance to preview this technology a little while back. Visited Alex and the team over at their office. Pretty neat. So congrats to the team for getting that out to market. While the Samsung Galaxy Home was nowhere to be seen at the company's Galaxy Unpacked event held this week, the smart speaker apparently has not been forgotten. DJ Koh, vice chairman and CEO of Samsung Electronics, told CNET that the company plans to launch the long-awaited smart speaker by April. First announced back in August of 2018, the device has sort of been relegated to the background for the most part, so it's nice to finally have a release date and coming up right around the corner. And we'll see if anyone actually buys it. That'll be the big question. Bixby sighting.
I have a point of contention here. Actually has been forgotten. I had to Google search for whatever.
Didn't even know it was a thing.
Couldn't even remember.
Well, here's your weekly reminder. Bixby sighting.
Leviton has announced a new version of its Load Center breaker box with an integrated Wi-Fi or Ethernet hub that would allow you to manage your home electrical setup directly from your phone. That's right, smart circuit breakers are now here. There have been aftermarket products that can monitor energy usage in your home, like Sense, which I've got in my house. But Leviton's system goes a little bit further by integrating smart home technology directly into the breaker box and individual circuit breakers, giving the homeowners far more information on their power management in their homes. Pretty cool.
Pretty interesting. I think Ethernet's the key there, right? I see a box full of Wi-Fi Ethernet breakers in a metal box full of electrical current, and God, I wonder how well that would work. But I'm sure they've tested for that. Kind of a neat technology. Be interested to learn more.
They don't need to have like the technology in what's going to be in the breakers are just what they call CTs, which basically are just amp meters to tell how much amps are being pulled off that particular breaker.
Got it.
But the brains could be just separate inside that box.
Yeah,
it's a big box.
It's probably gonna have to be, I would think.
Yeah.
Kind of a cool new technology. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that one. HomePod shipments totaled 1.6 million units in the fourth quarter of 2018, a 45% increase on a year-over-year basis. This, according to Strategy Analytics. Despite the growth, the research firm estimates that Apple's share of the worldwide smart speaker market was just 4.1% during the quarter. By comparison, Amazon and Google commanded the market with an estimated 13.7 million and 11.5 million smart speaker shipments, respectively. These two companies combined for an estimated 65.5% market share in the same quarter. So Apple still got a lot of ground to cover here.
Mr. Cook, I have some good news and I've got some bad news.
Yeah.
Good news is we're 45% up.
Yeah.
The bad news is up from
We're
zero.
still getting pummeled.
Up from zero.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
The bar wasn't set very high.
No. Samsung will exit the U.S. Blu-ray player market and has abandoned plans to introduce a new high-end 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray player model that was originally meant for release later this year. Samsung will no longer introduce new Blu-ray or 4K Blu-ray player models. Wow, this is confusing. In the U.S. market. Samsung spokesperson confirmed to Digital Trends. The statement implies that the company might continue to offer the devices in overseas markets like Europe or even in neighboring markets like Canada and Mexico. I don't know. I think Blu-rays are dead, man. I think they're dead.
Yeah. So it harkens back to our mailbag from last week, which we talked about extensively, and technology is just coming and going. I think we're starting to see the beginning of the end. For these sort of devices. I think the days are numbered, but we'll see. Time will tell. Google and Amazon are expanding the amount of data they gather about customers who use their voice software to control other gadgets. Now, these companies have always collected data every time someone used a smart speaker to, for example, turn a light on or off or lock a door. However, now they're asking smart home gadget makers such as Logitech and Hunter Fan Company to send a continuous stream of information. In other words, after you connect a light fixture to Alexa, Amazon wants to know every time the light is turned on or off, regardless of whether you asked Alexa to toggle the switch. Another example, televisions must report the channel that they're set to, and smart locks must keep the company apprised of whether or not the front door bolt is engaged. So I think some really interesting implications here. You would expect that if you ask your Google Home to turn on or off the lights, that data would be tracked, but you'd think if you had the option to go manually turn that on or off, it might be a little bit different. So I don't know. I can certainly make an argument for them needing to track that state in order to, I guess even then you'd have discrete on and off commands. So I don't know. This just seems a little bit heavy-handed to me.
And creepy? Creepy, I think is the word.
They're definitely a data play, and they're obviously just leveraging their power, right? The power of their platform to sort of put pressure. I can't imagine that device manufacturers are enthusiastic about this. And users shouldn't be either, for that matter.
Yeah. This is so weird. I mean, we kind of know this. We know this happens from. We talked about this with the TVs. I think one of the CTOs of one of the TV manufacturers admitted that, I think it was Vizio, admitted like, hey, the reason these TVs cost as much as they do is because we basically sell every data we can off to advertisers for them to, target ads to you. And I think we're probably going to start seeing the same thing here in the smart home. I mean, this is, for some reason, like the only intelligent thing, I guess, or only business that exists nowadays is just advertising, like to get you to buy more junk. I don't really understand why we can't, as a society, support companies that don't engage in these practices. But here we are.
It's kind of like I'm an older man, and I get up and I turn the light on and off in my bathroom every morning at 2 a.m. and all of a sudden I start getting ads for prostate medicine. right. I'm not even using the Google Home to do it. So what business is it of Google's that I'm turning the light on and off in my bathroom at 2 o'clock in the morning? These sorts of things are very real. Like the amount of data that they're able to gather is virtually boundless under this model. So I don't know. It's really interesting. This one, I think the significance of this story could go underappreciated if you don't sort of really read between the lines a little bit.
Yeah, and again, it's not this like individual point that you turn on and off a light. It's the data in aggregate, the total data that they have on you, they can just kind of like pull and suck in from other sources. Like they know that you went to the Walgreens and purchased, something for X, and then you went home and turn on and off. Like they know so much about you at this point. It's getting kind of ridiculous. I think we're finally seeing some pushback on that. Maybe here in the States, we've definitely seen that in Europe with GDPR. A little pushback on that, but I mean, this comes like on the heels of Google kind of having a little issue this week, and we were going to talk about it real quick too. Is like they had they got in a little bit of hot water with their security system, the Nest Secure, because it's shipped with an undisclosed microphone. It wasn't on the spec sheet. Like people. Google activated the microphone earlier this month for Google Assistant functionality. And it's like, hey, guess what you can do now with this thing you bought that we didn't tell you could? And people are like, oh, that's great. But wait, there's been a microphone in this device, and you guys didn't tell us about it from the very beginning. Like, it's good to have a surprise, but maybe not that kind of surprise.
Yeah. Surprise, Easter egg. Google
said the on-device microphone was never intended to be a secret and should have been on the tech specs and tech sheet, but there was an error. This was an error on our part. They said the microphone has never been on and is only activated when users specifically enable the option. And I mean, couple that with like the previous story. It's like you can tell why there's so much angst with this. Like people just don't trust these companies. I mean, to ship a product with a microphone that's disabled. Like people now probably believe that this thing that they had the microphone in it, they didn't know that microphone's been on and listening to them. I don't know. Who knows what it was listening to them, like getting up into the bathroom in the middle of the night and using the bathroom, I guess. I don't know what it was doing, but it's like a trust factor, right? Like you want to trust these companies to build this technology and make these really cool solutions. But at the same time, it's like they're selling all this data off to sell you prostate medicine. I'm just going to stick with that analogy this entire show.
Yeah, no, I've talked about it numerous times on the show. I wouldn't put myself, I guess if you had a spectrum of people and on one side you have people who just are maybe completely oblivious to all of this, and then on the other side you have, the guys wearing like tinfoil hats living in a wood hut in the woods, right? I'm more on the end of the spectrum, I guess, not of being oblivious, but of not being hyper concerned about all of this. But yeah, even I've got my limits, and it does start to get to a point where it's like, how much is too much? And yeah, the amount of data and information that's out there about us is cause for concern. For any of us, I think anyone who's paying
staggering.
Attention.
It's absolutely staggering.
I think I can be sort of pragmatic to a fault sometimes, and maybe be a little guilty of being too forgiving of this sort of thing. I think it's just one of those things that we all have to be aware of, and we all have to make our own decisions in life about what sort of technology we invite into our homes or into our lives, and it's so ubiquitous and so almost borderline, I hate to use this word because none of it is actually necessary for life, but to live in today's modern world, like you have to have a certain amount of technology. Cell phones are being a good example, and it'd be very hard to be a functioning member of society without a cell phone. Not impossible, but it would be difficult. So we all have to make those trade-offs, and it's unfortunate, and it does feel like it's getting worse, but I don't know. Maybe it's just we're getting more aware of it too. Yeah, like that may be part of it.
Yeah, this feels like I'm going back and like looking at Wikipedia to see when Nest released the Nest, like Nest Guard, I think is the name of this thing. It was September 2017, so it's almost been 2 years of this product being on the market, and I guess a year and a half. And they announced like we're going to update it, and it'll double as a smart speaker for you for your Google Home stuff. And man, I can see them like shipping this thing out in 2017 and being like, yeah, the speaker, the writer doing all, like the marketing guy doing all the tech talks, like, hey, engineer, what's the microphone in there for? We're not using it. It's completely turned off because we hope in the future we're going to turn on a smart speaker thing. And, I'm just not going to put that in. I can see like how that could be not malicious, right? Mm-hmm. fast forward 2 years, and we know what we know about like what these companies are doing. We know what happened with crazy Russian interference and Cambridge Analytica, that kind of thing. Like the massive amount of data that these companies get to do like targeted ads, and you're like, wait, there's a microphone.
Yeah,
hit the pause button, and you have to do a double take on that. And I can totally see how this wasn't malicious, but at the same time, it's like, man, this is
big miss.
This is a huge miss, and an unforced error, as they say.
Unforced error, yeah, absolutely. All right, well, like I said, everyone's got it's good that we're seeing more awareness around it. I think that's, to me, the biggest takeaway is like we're starting to see more talk about it, and I think more pressure is being brought to bear on these companies to be transparent. That's going to be a long battle, but it's, keep fighting the good fight, as they say. All of the links and topics that we've discussed on our episode this week can be found on our show notes at HomeTech.fm/246. While you're there, don't forget to sign up for our newsletter. We'll send you weekly show reminders and other occasional updates about all of the great things going on here in the world of home tech.
And don't forget, you can join us in the chat room live Wednesday, starting sometime between 7 and 7:30, which is usually when we kick it off. To find out more, go to HomeTech.fm/live and follow us on Twitter at HomeTech Podcast.
Yeah, we got a few folks hanging out. Omar just joined us. We got Glenn, who, Seth, according to the chat room, is planning a visit to your neck of the woods.
Yeah, I'm going to have to see what that's about, yeah.
And Glenn is here all the way, I believe, from New Zealand, if I remember correctly. Yes, Glenn is a Kiwi, so he is visiting from a very long ways away, and hopefully you guys will get a chance to connect.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah, absolutely. So without further ado, Seth, what do you say we jump into our interview here? Again, we had Tony Ostrom. He is the president at the WiSA Association. He joined us to talk all about the new technology, and let's go ahead and jump in. Hey, Tony, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Doing very well. We appreciate you taking some time out of your day to join us, and we look forward to jumping in and talking all about WiSA and all the cool things that you guys have going on there. But before we do that, why don't you give our listeners just a little bit of a personal introduction and maybe talk about some of your background here in the space?
Sure. My name's Tony Ostrom. I'm the president of the WiSA Association, the Wireless Speaker and Audio Association. I've been in consumer electronics for about 25 years, mainly in product development of new technologies in the audio space and the wireless space, including audio and wireless charging and personal audio and professional. Kind of ran the gamut in marketing, training, sales, and like I said, predominantly product development. I was formerly with Klipsch as the vice president of product development and brought to market one of the first wireless home theater systems using WiSA.
Very cool. So we are going to jump in and talk all about that technology and what it does and how people can learn more and get into it. But as we look to tee that up, why don't you give us sort of the elevator pitch here? What is the short version? What is WiSA exactly?
So WiSA is a wireless audio standard that is specifically designed for multi-channel home audio use. So that it's a perfect fit for home theater. Because it is multi-channel up to 8 channels, because it is high definition, 2496, because it's very low latency and tightly synchronized, it's a perfect wireless solution for multi-channel audio around a video screen. And so we are an association that standardizes that technology, making it interoperable for multiple brands to use. So when you go wireless, you have to be all speaking the same language. And we make sure that happens all the way from the transmitter to any of our certified speaker partners.
Very cool. How long has this been around?
So WiSA as a standard has been around for a few years, with good momentum in the 2 to 4 year range.
Okay.
It was originally developed by a company called Audio Mojo, and they were purchased by another company called Focus Enhancements that became Summit Semiconductor. And Summit Semiconductor, now Summit Wireless, fully owns WiSA LLC, the brand and all of its components. And we're a wholly owned subsidiary, but a separate entity. So we manage the standards body and all of its membership, which includes some pretty big names these days.
Nice, very nice. So, so let's take a step back. I remember you said there's 8. This is a wireless standard. It can do 8 separate channels. So you think like a 7.1 surround sound system. You got the
7.1, 5.1.2, or something simple, 2.0, 2.1. Yep.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I mean, just kind of give us an idea of what that looks like. I like to say this out of the box. Like, what do you, if I wanted a WiSA setup, like what would that look like physically in my house, and how would I kind of go about setting that up with, I guess, speakers that have the receivers built into them?
Yeah, so it's a pretty simple process. It's really designed to make it easy for people to, once again, enjoy that immersive sound experience, but without all the traditional hassle. So what that looks like out of the box kind of depends on the system you buy. There are solutions out there that are more home theater in the box kind of opportunities, and every speaker is kind of pre-labeled, and this is my center, this is my right front, left front, sub, and you position those all around the room, and they immediately connect to the transmitter, and you're done. We commonly say that it takes longer to unpackage a WiSA system than it does to actually set it up. I coined a phrase in a previous life, and it kind of has some legs. We call it the cold beer setup. Because if you open up a cold beer and set up your entire home theater, your beer will still be cold when you're done enjoying, your favorite football game or movie or whatever. The more elaborate way to set something up is to choose products from different brands that are all interoperable. So whatever your transmitter would be, whatever your main speakers, your subwoofer, your surrounds, they could all be from different brands, just like setting up a traditional wired system. All the brands work together because you physically connected them. Well, all of WiSA certified products work together because they have all gone through the certification process, and we know they all work. So if you wanted to use Harman front speakers and a Klipsch sub and Axum surrounds, you could do that.
Got it. So you mentioned the word transmitters there, and I want to take a second and sort of dive into that a little bit as we talk about the architecture of the system and how these things come together. I think people are getting a general sense. Okay, it's a wireless standard, interoperable. I can put together a surround sound system in my family room and not have to worry about running wires, which is great. But what is the transmitter side of this equation actually look like? Does it live in TVs? Does it live in set-top boxes, AV receivers, perhaps all of the above? Like, what is the sort of overall lay of the land when it comes to what sort of devices can act as that transmitter?
Well, it's nice when the easy answer is the best answer, because all of the above is actually the answer. So there are solutions that are more like traditional AVRs, although dramatically simplified. A good example of that is the Axum Q. So one of our early members, a company called Axum, has a product called the Q that is 6 HDMI inputs and transmits, wireless audio. So if you had more of a traditional setup with a lot of different sources, you could use a product like that. We've also recently come up with a solution that we call WiSA Ready, and that allows sources that don't necessarily want to burden their product with an extra component internally to become wireless. It allows them to easily connect an external component, a very small USB transmitter, that will then make that product WiSA certified. And that solution is being adopted pretty quickly by some pretty big names. So all of Xbox One, 1S, and 1Xs can transmit WiSA with an Axum Link USB transmitter. It's the only product that's both Xbox certified and WiSA certified. And then all of the premium 2019 LG TVs. So all of their Super UHD, which I believe they're now calling NanoCell, all their OLEDs are WiSA ready. So plugging in a product like the Axum Link would enable that TV to then become a transmitter. And it's really beautifully done. The user interface on the TV shows you all the speakers in the network, allows you to change their position, add them, remove them. It's really elegant, and they also added the WiSA logo to the volume when you're in WiSA mode. But so those are just a couple of the options to make something a WiSA transmitter. Super simple, very easy, minutes to install.
Got it. So just to kind of drive that point home, if somebody's maybe starting to paint a picture in their head, but to make sure they're totally getting it, like you could theoretically, if you have one of these LG TVs and then a surround sound set of speakers, right, that are all WiSA certified, that would literally be all you would need. You could theoretically use the built-in streaming apps on that LG TV, plug in that USB dongle into the TV, and voila, you've got a functioning surround sound system, no wires, no AV receiver. Am I understanding that correctly?
You are perfectly spot on. That's the aha moment, I think, for where we are with technology and the content that's coming into our homes today. There's so much content from leading providers that's in an immersive sound format. And what we're doing is we're saying, okay, you're watching this content, you're already absorbing it, in your home. You have the beautiful new, TV that you're watching it all on. We want to make it as simple as possible for you to realize how great that sounds. Also, there's really no extra work. Plug in the USB transmitter, set the speakers around you, plug them in, and the setup process is incredibly simple. All you need is a big, beautiful, plate of glass on your wall and great speakers around you. You no longer need all the complicated extra parts and laborious install.
Yeah. I know you're speaking my wife's language when you say that. No doubt about that. That's very cool. Seth and I often talk about a term that I can't say we coined, but it's something we've picked up somewhere and sort of latched onto, this idea of input zero, which is kind of like the TV, that pane of glass, as you alluded to it, really becomes like your input zero. That's your default. It's got the built-in apps, and that's really all you need. The idea of external set-top boxes and other sources sort of go away, and this sort of extends that out, right, to the ability to now do surround sound without any sort of external AV receiver. So really cool concept. One last follow-up question on the WiSA Ready concept. Again, just to make sure people are really understanding this correctly, you alluded to this external USB dongle, which could, I think, lead people to maybe believe, well, if my TV's got a USB port, like I plug this thing in and I'm sort of off to the races. But if I'm understanding correctly, even though it is an external USB, I guess, dongle or whatever you want to call it, the TV or the Xbox, as you alluded to, still has to have some technology built into it to support that, correct?
For a source like Xbox or LG TVs to be WiSA ready, number one, that's a designation that would be on the product packaging, so it's easy
right.
to buy at retail. They do have to provide the right audio output to the USB. And there also has to be a way, either through an on-screen user interface or through a mobile app, to control the environment, to control the speakers, see them, add them, remove them, do a few things that are mandatory to be certified. But the good news for us all, including the source manufacturers, is that's not a very complicated process. It's not nearly as complicated as embedding the technology. And so the uptake, and especially showing a lot of things at CES this year and some early prototypes last year, is really driving a lot of momentum for WiSA Ready, which is great because it's the simplest way for a lot of sources to start, participating in this very simplified, immersive solution.
Right. You just mentioned this the magic word for me, which is control. And Jason and I have these pesky custom integrator backgrounds, so we wouldn't be custom integrators if we didn't ask. Like, so control wise, how does this look from a control standpoint? Are you just sending volume commands to the TV, and then those are getting translated over to each speaker? Is that how this works?
So we don't restrict a lot of the potential features. So, and I say that because from an association perspective, we want to make sure that everything works together. But if you want to add advanced features, we're fine with that. So there's a basic concept that Everything connects very simply and easily, and the consumer is able to control the system's volume through some known mechanism. Be that, like with LG as an example, the TV remote, just like they would their TV sound or connected soundbar, works as the volume control. With something like the Axum Q, obviously it's more of an AVR solution, so there's a separate remote. And that control is the way it's internalized. You can do what you would like. Now we do mandate that there's a certain amount of volume normalization so that everybody kind of plays nicely together. But we try to not restrict things too much.
Okay, I mean that makes sense. But if I get a WiSA system, like Jason was talking about, I get my TV, plug in the dongle, get 8 speakers, put them around the room. I'm basically sitting there with my TV remote, and if I hit mute, all the speakers mute at the same time.
Correct.
That's slick. That's really cool. And what type of like surround sound format capabilities are you supporting? Is it just basically whatever 8 channels come out of the TV, or can you do like crazy things like Atmos and that kind of thing?
We are basically 8 pipes, and you can put anything through those 8 pipes you want. And so if you wanted to, anywhere from 2.0 to 7.1 to 5.1.2, we don't really care what goes through the pipes. We guarantee that what you put in will come out the other end, with low latency and very tightly synchronized on all 8 channels. So we would support, any of those formats.
And the 8 channels, is that like a hard limit, or are there plans to expand that? I mean, right now, 8 channels seems like enough to me, but I know there are people out there who need more channels. Is that like a hard limit with you guys, or is it something that may be expanded in the future?
So without going into roadmap details that people on the technical side of the aisle would bludgeon me over the head for going too deep into, we know there's a need for more than 8 channels at some point. For the mainstream applications, getting us back to at least 5.1 right now would be tremendous. For a simple normal application. But yes, we do realize that there's a need for that, and we want to facilitate that, and that's part of a roadmap.
So it's not as easy as just 2 dongles gets me 16 channels.
No, there's some pretty advanced things going on technologically to make sure that all those latency and synchronization specs are met. As an example, and I'll just give you one little kind of toe in the water. One of the issues with latency is that with a lot of wireless audio technologies, packets are rebroadcast. So I didn't get that last thing, send it again. And because that's in the technology, it adds delay. With our technology, that doesn't happen. There are some very, very advanced error correction algorithms that are going on. So we don't ever need to rebroadcast. So that's what keeps our latency so low. And just as a quick example. So there's some pretty high tech things going on, behind the scenes. And so when we start to talk about things like, going beyond 2496 and going beyond 8 channels, it's not that they're impossible. We just want to make sure that we're maintaining all the other specs while we would do that.
I have a good question for you, and it may be too technical for us to answer on this show, but why are you doing error correction on this if latency is a factor?
Well, the error correction happens after the transmission. So it's instead of asking for a rebroadcast and adding delay so that we have time to do that, we're basically saying, okay, it's wireless. Anything wireless, occasionally, something doesn't get from A to B.
Even wired, that's the case. But I was thinking, if you think about how TCP works on the internet and UDP works on the internet, one's just a broadcast, and you're broadcasting those packets. UDP is a broadcast, and TCP is like the handshake thing where it has to go back and forth and do all this error correction, set up encryption and that kind of thing. But UDP is just like, boom, you get it or you don't, and here's the ones and zeros.
Right.
What advantage do you guys see doing that type of connection? To me, it seems like you add latency for that. But what advantage are you getting out of that?
Well, no, because we never broadcast, we never add latency, and we do it. We do the error correction so quickly that I'll give you an example. Um, we are in the high end of the speakers that are utilizing our technology are $40,000 a piece. That particular company was extremely critical about the audio quality, even with the error correction, engaged. And it took a long time and a lot of research and development and money to pass the golden ears at that particular brand. And the current technology does that. To do it any other way would actually add latency, and we can't do that and feel good about saying it's a home theater technology. So we did it the hard way, but the right way, and we ended up with a product that passes every level of golden ear and doesn't have any latency, all the way down to 5.2 milliseconds.
Wow.
So we're well within all the required standards of the various audio governing bodies. And we're really proud of what we've been able to accomplish.
Yeah, from an engineering standpoint, that is a feat to get that little. I mean, I'm thinking of what I really want to dive into this. Like, how are you doing this this checksum basically to figure out if something's not broadcast correctly, you've got to go back and say, hey, send this packet again, and get that information back into the speaker, and then put out the speaker before the next piece of information comes in.
We never asked for it to be rebroadcast.
Oh, okay. So you just drop that. Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We fix it rather than get it again.
Interesting.
Yep. And the output is great. It's really an elegant solution. So
very cool. Well, hopefully we didn't lose anyone there. I think it's fascinating stuff, and it certainly sounds like from an engineering perspective, you've done some great things there. Talk about zooming back out, and I want to make sure that listeners have a really good understanding. Like, super low latency, I mean, that sounds sexy. It sounds super important, right? But in this environment, why is that? Like, why is low latency such an important thing to think about when it comes to designing a viewing room or media room or theater?
Right. Well, you want to make sure that you don't get into lip sync issues, and that the video isn't getting to your eyes before the audio gets to your ears. And that's really in a nutshell what we're trying to avoid. And with a lot to bring the technical conversation we just had, up a few notches, or more into, the mainstream, if you don't handle the wireless audio properly, it will be delayed and you will see that lip sync issue. And it's very difficult to get it so low that that's not an issue, while at the same time keeping all the speakers on exactly the same timing. Because if you're trying to set up a really nice sound field, especially in a few different dimensions, you need all those speakers to be very, very tightly timed. And so to time the speakers together and to keep the latency down with the TV is very difficult, and not something that's easily done or done at all with other wireless technologies. And that I kind of look at it like there are certain technologies that fit the role. And if you're talking about multiple speakers around a video, we're the solution. We've really been designed for that use case.
Got it. And that's exactly what I wanted you to hit on for sure, because I think everybody listening to the show right now, when you started talking about lip sync issues, if they didn't understand it before, they understand it now, right? Because we've all dealt with that, and it is one of the most infuriating problems in any media room or theater when you see that slight delay between the lips moving and the audio that's hitting your ears. It is incredibly disruptive to the viewing experience, and it's something you definitely need to think about with any media room, but especially, like you said, when you start going to wireless technology, it becomes really, really important.
We have really designed this to be a wire replacement. It
cool.
should have the same capability. And quite honestly, the fact that it's wireless means that the speakers have to be powered. And from an engineering perspective, being able to design the electronics specifically for each speaker and having them be powered and processed perfectly for the acoustic solution is a really, really great way to approach making a speaker. And so there are benefits even beyond the fact that it's wireless and simple, and we've kind of overcome all these typical wireless obstacles. Well, then the result is you get this great powered speaker that this electroacoustic system that was designed perfectly to work. The electronics and the acoustics were designed perfectly to work together. So it's really a win-win situation.
You're basically getting like studio grade monitors set up around the room at that point.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in the traditional, home theater build where it was wired, you'd pick your receiver that had the right amount of power for your speakers, and, it would work. But chances are the guy that developed that amplifier and the guy that developed that front right speaker never went to lunch together.
Right.
And we're talking about those things coming from the same company because they were designed to go together, the amplifier and the speaker. And it's just, we've seen, smaller speakers sound like bigger speakers, and bigger speakers sound amazing, like even bigger speakers, because they're able to extract every ounce of performance, out of that cabinet, out of that driver, out of that tweeter, out of the whole system. And it's amazing. I mean, we've had some speakers that came in and we're like, okay, those are pretty, they look like they're pretty, imposing, and you turn them on and they just, kick your butt. And it's just because they're completely perfectly dialed in.
Yeah. Staying on speakers, and I'm going back on my memory here. Did you just say, I mean, I was lost in the technical talk, but did you just say that the high end of what you guys support is a $40,000 speaker?
Correct. The Bang & Olufsen deal at 90.
Bang. Okay, that makes sense.
We are in speakers up to that price point, and all the way down to a complete 5.1 home theater in a box, including the multi HDMI input transmitter for less than $1,000. And that's really the scalability of the solution. Is, like I said, it's a wire replacement. So, we want to be able to be in all of those different, opportunities for whatever level of system you want to build, for wherever the use case is, for wherever the budget is. It still needs to have those features and those abilities.
Very cool. So this technology is out there in the wild today. It sounds like people can go out there and get their hands on it and put it in place. And you've got, like you alluded to, you're working with speakers at all different price points. So that's great. Can you give us an idea for how you go about, I think you said there's a logo that people can look for on the box. I mean, how do people go about if they're interested in this technology and want to learn, okay, what kind of speakers or what sort of components do I need to be looking for? What's the easiest way for them to do that?
Yeah, so at retail or online, you would want to look for anything that says WiSA certified. It's a very identifiable logo. It's a circle with a W in the middle. It looks like a sound wave. And you can also always go to WiSAassociation.org and look through the lists of certified speakers. We have a number of products up there. We're in the process of certifying more and more, and also adding transmitters. Like I said, with all the new LG TVs, and a growing list of speakers. So you can kind of figure out what works for you from a price point, from a design perspective, what kind of sound you like. I mean, Bang & Olufsen, Klipsch, Axum, Enclave, Harman, Platin, System Audio, Electrocompagnie, Golden Ear. The list goes on of guys that are certified or getting certified, with more people joining the association all the time. We're going to have in the next few weeks, we're going to have another announcement of several more companies joining the association. So it's a really exciting time, a lot of growth. And we're just excited about making things easier for people to build great immersive audio systems in their homes.
Very nice. One quick follow-up question that I just thought up on the TVs. We've been seeing this lately of kind of a trend where TVs have basically become software platforms for all intents and purposes, where new features will be able to be brought into old TVs with a simple software update. Is that something you see? Maybe, I know LG, it's saying on the press release you guys have that it's the newer TVs, the OLEDs and the UHD LCD TVs. Mm-hmm. Is this something that can be brought into an older TV? So say, somebody like Vizio comes on board and does a software update. Is it something that they would be able to utilize, or is this something that has to have a hardware component built into the TV?
It doesn't have to have a specific hardware component to be WiSA ready. It does have to have the right components to allow audio to get to the USB in the proper format. And some of that depends on the internal piping of the TV. And it can also in some way even relate to the operating system on the smart TV without going into a lot of detail. So possible, yes. Possible with every TV, probably not. And that's just a case-by-case basis.
And that's why you have the organization that you do, right, is to go out there and evangelize and get more people, get more companies, I should say, onto that bandwagon. So really cool sounding technology, Tony. Definitely appreciate you coming on and sharing with our listeners. I know I enjoyed learning more about it. Hope others did as well. As we wrap up our interview here, what's next for WiSA? Like, what are you guys getting excited about here in the next 90 days, 6 months, 12 months? What's getting you guys keeping you up at night for good?
We have some exciting products coming through the certification process. We're in the process of signing up several new members, and that includes everybody from sources to manufacturers to speaker brands. And then, really leveraging what's going on with WiSA Ready and making this whole thing a lot easier for everybody. We've got good solutions no matter what kind of system you want to build, and we've got some good momentum coming out of the Consumer Electronics Show. And right now we're just keeping that pace going and trying to help people bring more solutions. So there are more options for all the customers out there that want to build cool stuff in their house.
All right. Very cool. And if our listeners wanted to connect with you and or learn more about WiSA, what would be the best way for them to do that?
You can always stop by the website at WiSAassociation.org, or you could reach out to me directly at Ostrom at WiSAassociation.org. And my contact can be found on the website. And we'd be happy to talk audio and help you in any way we can.
All right. Very good. Well, Tony, we do appreciate you taking the time, and we'll look forward to seeing what you guys are able to do.
Jason, Seth, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate the opportunity.
You got it. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Well, that does it for our interview with Tony, and I had a really good time. I knew a little bit about the technology coming into it, obviously from doing some research and approaching Tony about coming on the show, but I learned a lot. It seems like a really, really cool option for a lot of different applications, a lot of different price points that you could use this, and certainly save yourself some headaches when it comes to wiring. And it seems like it could be a really neat option. Again, given the flexibility of different applications that you could use it in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is it's like I said earlier in the show, this is like one of those little stepping stones to getting to that input zero that I don't think you know the smart guys that listen to this show, right? There's smart integrators that listen to this show and hear these things and kind of like keep them in the back of their mind. It may not be today's technology, but it's definitely tomorrow's technology. And they're going to be looking at this and thinking how systems in the future are going to be designed and how they can integrate with them and all that. So and this is huge for consumers, right? Because you could just go and buy, one of these home theater in a box type setups, or even those. I mean, you look on their website, they have some clip speakers that are like WiSA certified. Like it's plug and play. You just set them up with the app, and you go, and you got a nice little surround system. So I'm excited about this technology. I can't wait to see, who picks it up and where it goes in the future.
Yeah. I think that'll be the big thing, is watching what they're able to do here over the next, 6 months, a year, 2 years, like how much sort of adoption they're able to get. It sounds like they've got a good running start and a lot of momentum. So definitely wish them all the best and enjoyed learning more. What do you say, Seth? We've got I think a good pick of the week this week.
Yeah. So, Jason, what would you say the most stressful part of your morning is? Is it going to the gym and working out, or?
Oh, that is quite the setup for this picture, Seth. I certainly wouldn't say that it is visiting the commode, as it were, but it turns
There's a lot
out
of straining that can go on in there if you're not eating or having a proper diet.
There is, you got to keep a lot of fiber in that diet, certainly. But if you do happen to find yourself spending a lot of time on the toilet seat, I've got some good news for you. There is now a smart toilet seat that can, reading from the headlines here, monitor your health through your butt cheeks. And I think in like 5 years of doing the show, that's the first time we've uttered the phrase butt cheeks here on HomeTech.
Yeah, it could be. So this thing has God, this is a cardiovascular monitoring system, and it's designed to detect deterioration early. So, as you're sitting there, doing your morning, your daily constitution, as they say, it incorporates a single lead ECG. So you could basically buy an Apple Watch or buy one of these, and I think this is probably more helpful because sometimes you forget to put it on your watch, right?
Right. You're never going to forget to use the toilet.
You can check your blood oxygenation level to make sure you're there breathing. Make sure you have controlled breathing. And bastocardiogram, whatever that is, mechanical forces associated with the cardiac cycle. And of course, it'll detect your body weight as you sit there and ponder why you did eat all of that Chinese food last night.
Shouldn't have gone for that third helping. Yeah, that's the problem with Chinese food, though. It's like, it's just so good.
It's so good. It's so good. It's so spicy. So spicy. Both
jokes
ways.
aside, though, this is definitely looks like a fairly advanced, probably the most advanced toilet seat I've ever seen, I would have to say. And it certainly could be very useful for, I'm imagining this is developed for the elderly. So it could do some, very useful health monitoring while you're using the toilet there, and kind of an interesting technology. And it gave us the opportunity to say butt cheeks on the air. So there you go.
There you go. Yeah,
There's your pick of the week.
Hey, at least you will, it won't guarantee your health, but at least you can see if something's going on as you sit there. You don't have to put a watch on. You don't have to do anything.
It's
just
data.
Sit down.
It's all about the data, Seth.
Exactly. Hopefully they're not selling this off, this particular algorithm off to Amazon.
You never know. You never know.
Oh, that's what you're doing at 2:00 in the morning.
It all makes sense. This is the missing link. It brings it all. It brings it all together. All right. Well, if you have any feedback, questions, comments, picks of the week, or great ideas for a show topic, give us a shout. We would love to hear from you. Our email address is feedback@HomeTech.fm. Once again, that's feedback@HomeTech.fm, or visit HomeTech.fm/feedback if you would prefer to fill out our online form.
And we want to give a big thank you to everyone who supports the show, but especially those who are able to financially support the show through our Patreon page. If you don't know about our Patreon page, head on over to HomeTech.fm/support to learn how you can support HomeTech for as little as $1 a month. Any pledge over $5 a month gets you a shout out on the show, but every single pledge gets you an automatic invite to our Slack chat, The Hub, where you and other supporters of the show can gather every day for inside baseball conversations about all the aspects of home technology.
Absolutely. And if you want to help us out but can't do it financially, we totally get it. We would also appreciate a review on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Certainly gunning for those 5 stars, but any review helps. Let us know what you're liking, what and what we could do better, perhaps. Although, Seth, we definitely want those 5-star ratings. Ultimately helps other people find the show, which we absolutely appreciate. So again, if you're a fan of what we're doing here and want to help support the show, take a few minutes to go leave a review on iTunes or your podcast directory of choice.
Smart toilets. That's the future, Jason. Mark my words.
Data and butt cheeks.
It's some big data.
That doesn't affect our explicit. We don't have to check the explicit box on this week's episode.
No, I don't think so. I mean, we got close, but yeah.
PG. All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Had a lot of fun, and we'll definitely look forward to reconnecting Seth week. We'll definitely look forward to reconnecting next week. Seth, I hope you have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again soon.
Yep. Have a good weekend.
All right. Take care.